Hey everybody, and welcome back to Lucifer Within Us. I think that's the name of the game anyways. Alright, so I did go back and check after the last episode. I did get a achievement for unlocking all of the contradictions and stuff in that previous interaction, that previous investigation. So I guess we got everything, and there wasn't like some way we could have successfully accused the other brother. So the thing that I was thinking of, like, maybe there's multiple ways to solve it. It didn't seem like there was multiple ways. Let's have a chat with Virgil here. Did you notice the muddy footprints in the mortuary, Sister Ada? I haven't been in the mortuary yet. The rainfall began around dusk. That means the prints were left by someone who walked in after that time. Is that evidence, or is that you're just trying to help me? I think that's just you just trying to help me. All right, what do we got here? We got a grave, it looks like, and we got a sickle. The immaculately maintained grave shows the genealogy of an illustrious family. There isn't a blade of grass out of place around the stone, but there is a blade, aka a sickle. Its lightweight blade slices through the air to trim grass and chop weeds. Its sharp edges could easily injure someone. You know what? If you need to be using a sickle to cut the grass and weeds, that's a real terrible job, because you gotta be on your hands and knees. The thing doesn't have a lot of reach. Alright, we have a guy over here and a statue of Saint Walpurga. The statue of Saint Walpurga, the founder of the abbey and patron saint of exorcists. Okay. A fresh grave here, a fresh grave here, and a fresh grave here. Is this Miriam? No, that one's even fresher, huh? Oh, that's right, because the dead guy's in the Miriam's grave, so that's the corpse. Aether scanner. Already recorded. Sorry, let's see what it was. A portable Aether-powered device for recording images and text. And you are Abraham the grave tender.
Release me! I had nothing to do with that boy.
You need to calm down, sir.
You must be Abraham, the grave tender.
I am. I've worked here for 30 years, worked hard without complaint. Look around you, every bush trimmed, every headstone polished because of me. I've done all that is asked of me and more. Yet the moment something goes wrong, I'm the one blamed? We're not blaming you here, sir. We just hope you can help us answer some questions. It's not personal. Even the most steadfast among us may fall prey to Lucifer's whispers, Abraham. Look, I was trying to give the man some comfort and at least pretend like he wasn't a suspect, and you're over here calling him out, saying he may be possessed by Lucifer himself. You dug the grave in which the victim was found, didn't you? Actually, I didn't dig anything today. Then who did? How would I know? I've been busy, working, as always.
As the grave tender, any crimes that took place here are your responsibility. If you are truly innocent, hide nothing, and tell me what happened. We'll find the truth together.
Alright, so this is Abraham's testimony. Let's just hear him out.
I spent the early afternoon tending to the bushes by the mortuary.
See a body over here. Like they have that Aether scanner. Alright, can we speed it up a little bit? You're just going to be tending the bushes for this entire time? Then you walk over here. Go not into the...
When I headed back to the mortuary, Narissa told me there was nothing else special to do for the day. So I left her to her work. I walked through the mortuary, then headed downhill towards the benches.
Okay, so you did go in the mortuary.
I spent the remainder of the afternoon resting on a bench.
Okay. Speed you up a little bit then. Okay, somebody walked past.
Suddenly, I heard someone call for help from the back field. I ran over, surprised to see a dead body in the grave.
So that's it, huh? That's your old testimony. Can I ask you some questions about any of
spent
this?
the early afternoon tending to the bushes by the mortuary.
Are you claiming that you didn't dig the grave? Right. That's what I said. I was busy with the bushes. Alright.
When I headed back to the mortuary, Nerissa told me there was nothing else special to do for the day, so I left her to her work.
So you were dismissed early in the day. Why didn't you go home? Nerissa made it clear I should leave her to work, so I did. But there's plenty of other groundskeeping work to be done. If there was plenty of other groundskeeping work to be done, why'd you spend so much time on the bench? The large headstone out front needed some attention, so I headed that way.
I walked through the mortuary, then headed downhill towards the benches.
You didn't run into anyone? No, no one passed by me.
I spent the remainder of the afternoon resting on a bench.
He says it so funny, bench. You were there until someone called for help? That's right.
Suddenly, I heard someone call for help from the back field. I ran over, surprised to see a dead body in the grave.
Then Father Augustine was the one that called for help. Is that Father Augustine? Yeah, he was standing over the grave when I arrived. Nerissa arrived around the same time, too. Alright, well, that's all the questions I have for you regarding that, but I want to ask you some things about some of the items that I found. Well, first, let me ask you about yourself, sir. As gravekeeper, his responsibilities include the upkeep of cemetery grounds and preparing graves for burials. Heavily calloused hands at his side reveals it is an arduous job. The task, the job, even though that's what's written there. I'm Abraham, the groundskeeper here. I polish the headstones, trim the bushes, that kind of thing. I've been doing this for many years. It's a good job. Quiet. Peaceful even, most days. Okay. What do you know about this big grave you said needed some attention? Ah, that could be a contradiction because it doesn't need anything because it's fully done. Notice that, huh? It's my family's old grave. We're not nobility anymore, but the abbey's grounds once belonged to my ancestors. It was all confiscated after my great-uncle Sergius was branded a heretic. Too bad for the rest of us. Maybe it's Einsoff's humor that I work the land now as a laborer. Life has its ups and downs. It's a good job. I have a question for you. You said specifically...
When I headed back to the mortuary, Nerissa told me there was nothing else special to do for the day.
Is this where you told me the large headstone out in front needs some attention, but it doesn't? It's done. Not sure how that proves me wrong. Maybe we were talking about the wrong headstone. I'll try it.
Through the mortuary, then headed downhill towards the benches.
I want to try it on each spot, though.
I spent the remainder of the afternoon resting on a bench.
Okay, so that's not the right. That's not the right direction I should have been going with. Let me ask you about the sickle. Lies unmasked. This sickle was found by the gravestone that you were supposedly polishing. Admit it, Abraham, you left it there. Fine, of course I had the sickle. I had to tend the grass around the graves. I didn't mention it because I thought it made me look suspicious. Now you've made yourself even more suspicious. Okay. Now when he said he was just resting on the bench, he was using the sickle somewhere. We've identified that. Amend your testimony. Alright. Head towards benches and then trim grass. So let's...
I walked through the mortuary, then headed downhill towards the benches.
So you didn't rest on the bench. You went right to...
I had a sickle with me because I wanted to trim the grass around a grave in the front field.
And that's it, huh? You're just gonna do that for a while? Well, let me ask you a question about it. So you admit that you had the sickle with you since you left the mortuary. Yes, I did, and then I used it to trim the grass. That's what it's for. Alright, so we've identified that. Let me ask you about the big statue of the Saint Walpurga. The statue is always an ordeal to clean. 100 some odd years old already, as you probably know. Birds love making a mess on her head. I keep her sparkling clean almost out of spite. Out of spite? The feeling you're not a big believer in Saint Walpurga, and I do see that we've opened up something in your third eye chakra over here. Let me ask you about this Aether scanner that I found. I don't know what it is. Why would someone put that on a grave? Let's reveal your inner self, dude. Evidence discovered: grief. Can I ask you about your grief? Found in Abraham's sanctum. Though it was over 100 years ago, Abraham mourns his family's fortunes, so quickly reducing their status. I will never forget that night. Someone torched our home, trying to burn us alive. Well, I mean, they torched your family's home. You're not 100 years old, I don't think. You could be. Maybe we live a long time in this future universe. Of course, the guards never caught the arsonist. How could they, when it almost certainly was one of their own? Okay, so you think the guards had something to do with it. Alright, well, you know what? I'm done with you right now, sir. Look for things that may not be highlighted as something we can inspect. Guards out here. Ah, is that some of that wacky weed? What is this? The devil's herb. Yes, it's herb. The devil's herb. I knew something nefarious is afoot. The abbey must be purified of its scent. I should dispose of any that I find. Okay, we removed the devil's herb. Something over there as well. We found Isaac. We found the victim's body. The victim, a teenage youth, aspiring to be a scholar. Raised in the church, he joined Augustine as his apprentice 8 months ago. Now, it's very peculiar. Could Augustine have wanted to get rid of him for some reason? The apprentice's youthful face is serene above his cleanly slit throat, with no bruising. However, an angry scar runs across his stomach. So it was more than one attack? Well, it was a scar, so this is a previous injury. The surgical multi-tool. I feel like this is the murder weapon. I don't know why. Found on the staircase between the mortuary and the grave, an Aether-powered tool for making incisions, applying preservatives, and closing wounds. So it belongs in the mortuary. Alright, let's ask this guy about those things. I would like to ask you about the victim's body, please. Are you sure it wasn't an accident? It seems so strange to have a murder after all these years without any. Unfortunately, we're sure, Abraham, this was a daemon's work. A pity, and the boy so young too. I suppose that's part of Einsoft's will somehow. That's definitely, we're asking about the multi-tool. That's definitely Nerissa's. I've seen her using it at her table many times, getting the dead ready to rest. I suppose it cuts and injects and repairs? I've never used one myself. Let me ask you about the boy. That's the poor boy in the grave? Such a shame. I hadn't seen him while he was alive. Alright, we're done here. Oh, wait, I have a question about rushing to the grave. Hold on. It's telling me that there's something here.
I had a sickle with me because I wanted to trim the grass around a grave in the front field.
Alright. Suddenly, I heard someone call for help from the back field. I ran over, surprised to see a dead body in the grave. Okay, so that actually... So that wasn't anything new, it was just... somehow telling me that something had changed here. Gotcha. Leave. Anything else? Let's go check around the front. We haven't talked to... Are you Augustine? You are, in
You
fact,
must be
Augustine.
Father Augustine. The victim was your apprentice, correct?
Just look at this man and tell me he's not the murderer.
Correct. And you are Sister Ada, the exorcist. It is a unique pleasure.
Thank you, but I only serve Einsof according to my calling. Why are you here, Father? I'm visiting in preparation for Mother Miriam's sudden funeral. Weren't you already visiting even before she died? It's a true blessing to witness your holy work, Sister Ada. I pray Isaac can rest in peace. How long did Isaac study under you? Did you know him well? He was a fine apprentice, a ready mind and a willing soul. I will mourn him in my own way. You didn't answer how long he'd been with you. But I must admit, the prospect of witnessing an exorcism is an unexpected silver lining. I find you guilty, Father Augustine. You'll find the experience to be unpleasant. Tell me now, what happened this afternoon? Leave nothing. Leave nothing out. I began by taking an afternoon stroll. Alright, let's watch it. Please, for me, sir, play your timeline.
I arrived at the graveyard with Isaac for Mother Miriam's funeral. Isaac headed to the mortuary on a minor errand.
What is the minor errand? I need to know that. Alright, what was the minor errand, sir? Indeed. Were you close to her, Father? No, but the abbot was too busy with mass preparations to hold her funeral, so I was trusted with the task. Okay. Keep playing.
Then I passed through the graveyard until I saw the statue of Saint Walpurga. What craftsmanship, and so well maintained.
Okay, so you looked at the statue. Happened to notice that, the gravekeeper isn't here yet. But he was up here tending to the bushes, I think, for the start. So he hasn't gotten down here yet. So that's fine. Let me ask you about the statue. Was there something particular about the statue that caught your eye? Given its age, it's been immaculately maintained. The groundskeeper must be skilled. Yeah, but he kind of does it out of spite.
For most of the afternoon, I was walking through the graveyard, merely observing and admiring.
Okay, so we should see Graveskeeper Man, come down. If he comes down. We don't see him. Okay. Let me ask you a question while we're here. That is a lengthy stroll. Tell me more about what you were doing. You doubt me? Show me proof that I was doing something else. Oh, you're a real jerk, aren't you, dude? So you're admiring the graves, you're admiring the graves, you're admiring the graves.
At sunset, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac. I was surprised to find an open grave with something inside. Isaac.
Let me ask you this question about this then. Did you see anyone? No, I was the only one near the grave. Not looking good for you, dude.
Isaac. I was horrified to discover that it was Isaac's dead body. That's when I called for help.
Okay, that seems to, I mean, that matches up. We know you called for help. So you were the first to arrive at the grave. Yes, I was. Alright, I have a question about you. I want to ask about yourself. Tell me about yourself. My name is Augustine. I'm a scholar, primarily of daemons and aether technology. Okay. Let me ask you about that big grave. Did you see it? It's preserved in remarkable condition. Marvelous craftsmanship, too. A shame the family became disgraced. That tall man with the beard. I think I saw him holding it, the sickle, at one point. Okay, well, tell me about Walpurga statue. Ah, good old Saint Walpurga. Are you quizzing me about your own patron saint? I'm asking what it means to you, Father. Very well. It honors her final victory against Lucifer in the Abbey's chapel, a true holy site. For 111 years, no daemons had been sighted in our world until today. Okay, what do you know about this aether scanner? That's my aether scanner. I used it to record images and parse them into glyphs. Well, you didn't tell me you were using it. You just said you were strolling around. Tell me about the victim's body. His face, it's as if he just fell asleep. But how could this be? He had no enemies. Did you see this tool? Oh, sorry, I wasn't done talking to you yet. Is it possible I was the intended target? Horrifying to consider. Okay. Let me ask you about this tool. Have you seen it? My path has not crossed one of these devices before. It must be a tool of some sort, but for what purpose I can only guess. Let me ask you about your boy Isaac. Isaac was my apprentice. He had such potential. It breaks my heart to know it will never be reached. Let me ask you about the grave tender. I assume he keeps the grounds, but other than the statue, I don't see that there's much to do. Okay. Well, did you know that he's really upset about his family being, knocked down a peg? I don't quite know what you're asking. Yeah, I figured you wouldn't. All right, I want to actually contradict you, sir.
For most of the afternoon, I was walking through the graveyard, merely observing and admiring.
I don't think you were merely observing and admiring. I think you were, in fact, using your scanner. Masks or lies unmasked. During your so-called stroll, did you drop this by any chance? I found it placed in front of a gravestone. What were you doing with it? This has nothing to do with Isaac's death. Oh, but you're keeping things from me, and that's looking very bad, sir. I shall be the judge of that. Tell me what you're doing. I was using that scanner to recover a lost hymn for Abbot Gregory to use in tonight's Mass. How do you recover a hymn with a scanner? The last record of it is etched upon one of these gravestones. Okay, so we can know a little bit more about him, but he has really opened up here. So let's find it. So he admires.
And then I passed through the graveyard until I saw the statue of Saint Walpurga. What craftsmanship, and so well maintained.
All right, yep, you stood there. Then
it took me a little while, but I found it. The grave of Sergius.
Okay, you went to Sergius' grave, sure. Placed the scanner.
I placed my scanner in front of the gravestone. It would take some time to decode the etchings. Then I saw a stranger pass by. He was tall, barrel-chested. I think he was the groundskeeper.
He didn't come from that
Afterwards, I
direction.
waited by the grave for my scanner to complete its task. It was taking longer than I expected, so I had to leave it.
When the sun was setting, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac and begin the funeral.
Oh,
At
there's a
sunset,
body
I
went running
wandered
away.
to the back area to meet with Isaac. I was surprised to find an open grave with something inside. Not Isaac.
All right, let me ask you about searching for the grave.
It took me a...
How did you find the grave of Sergius? Are you certain it is the heretic's resting place? I'm certain. It's identifiable by a unique set of etchings on his gravestone. It takes a scholar's eye to discern its difference from other gravestones. And then
I placed my
you placed the
scanner in front of the gravestone.
What were you trying to decode? According to my research, Sergius was buried with the last record of the lost hymn of communion. Fortunately, it's written in an ancient script that even I can't read. It was obscure even in Sergius's time. It's part of my research to reconstruct some of the data that was lost or suppressed after Sergius's condemnation.
Then I saw a stranger pass by. He was tall, barrel-chested. I think he was the groundskeeper.
You're certain that he came from the rear fields rather than the mortuary? Correct. Well, I want to contradict you because Abraham says he didn't. He said he came from the front. I don't quite know what you're asking. Well, you know what? Screw you, dude. Alright, let's leave you. You waited for the scanner.
Afterwards, I waited by the grave for my scanner to complete its task. It was taking long.
What were you trying to decode? Sergius was buried with the last record of the... Yeah.
When the sun was setting, I wandered to the back area to meet with Isaac and begin the funeral.
So you instructed Isaac to meet you at the rear field at dusk. That was the plan, yes. I expected to have found the grave and finished the decoding by this point. Isaac would meet me in the rear field with the bouquet, and we would attend the funeral. Are you sure I can't ask you one more time, dude? You said you observed Abraham.
And then I saw a stranger pass by.
You
He
sure?
was tall, barrel-chested.
No, let's go ask Abraham about that. Actually, before we do that, let's find out what your deal is. Evidence discovered disappointment. Who are you disappointed in, dude? Let's ask you about that. Found in Augustine's sanctum, Augustine is unimpressed by his apprentice Isaac's recent research. A mediocre effort for someone with such potential. Isaac could have been an eminent scholar if only he was more disciplined and rigorous in his thinking. I admit, I sometimes felt he was wasting his gift. His death is even more of a waste, of course. Well, let me leave you. I would then like to ask, you, Abraham. So you said that you headed towards the bench.
I walked through the mortuary, then headed downhill towards the benches.
You said you did that, but Augustine says he saw you coming the other way. Lies unmasked. Lies. You didn't walk through the mortuary after speaking with Nerissa. You passed through the grave. Augustine saw you coming from the back fields. How did I know that Abraham was telling the truth and not Augustine? Or how did I know that Augustine was telling the truth? That's what I meant. How did I know that he was telling the truth, that he went this way? Fine, I did walk through the back fields. Past the grave I dug. Past the grave you dug? You just told me you didn't dig the grave. People have always blamed me for things I didn't do, so I didn't think you'd believe me. I'm sorry. I haven't said I believed you yet, but we'll see. What was in this grave when you passed by it? Nothing. There was no body, no blood, nothing. You told me a lie, dude, and I don't know how to call you out on it. Because you said you didn't have... You said somewhere that you didn't dig that grave, and I don't know where you said you didn't dig the grave. Tended bushes. You spent the early afternoon tending the bushes, but didn't you say to me just now that you dug the grave? Let's...
I spent the early afternoon tending to the bushes by the mortuary.
Marissa told me she was in the middle of a delicate procedure, so I left the way I came.
When I passed by the grave, it was still empty, ready for the funeral. I walked through the walls to reach the front field. I suppose that's when the scholar saw me.
Alright, well, I need to ask you about the passing by the grave.
When I passed by the grave, it was still empty.
So you didn't see the victim, alive or dead, in the rear field at this time, by the grave you dug. Nope, I didn't see anybody at all, or anything suspicious either. Let's go to here.
I spent the early afternoon tending to the bushes by the mortuary.
I can't contradict this. I can't contradict you with your own words. You told me you didn't dig it, though. Where is that information that I don't have? Maybe if I accused you, that would work. I wish I could contradict you with your own words. Let me ask you about tending bushes, though, again. You claimed that you didn't dig the grave. Right, that's what I said. I was busy with the bushes. Now, how do I tell you you're a liar? Evidence discovered last Scion. Let me ask you about that, sir. Found in Abraham's sanctum, as the last descendant of a disgraced noble lineage, Abraham feels owed his family's legacy. About 100 years ago, the church decided Sergius, my great-uncle, was a heretic, which I suppose he was. But ever since, they've persecuted my family, confiscated everything we owned, noble to laborers overnight. I'm all that's left of Sergius's line. I took this job to somehow keep working my ancestral lands, one way or another. I was bitter when I started out, but I've discovered the work suits me. Maybe it was all Einsoft's plan after all. Okay, well, let's go ask. Let's leave you, sir. I mean, have I asked you about Augustine? I don't like speaking badly of others behind their backs, but honestly, he gives me the creeps. No, I understand that. Definitely understand that. Okay, leave you. And I want to go inside. Let's go through the back. I realize this episode's getting long, but let's talk to the last person at least. Oh, there you go. I was going to say, can I not go through there? So we have a shovel. Found hanging in the back area of the mortuary, heavy, bulky, and caked with dirt. You know, before we... Oh, there's footprints. Muddy footprints. Found on the floors of the mortuary, still wet, leads from the back exit of the mortuary to the embalming table. Let's go... honestly, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here. I do want to ask you about that shovel, though. That's my shovel. It's built to last. Good workmanship. I usually leave it at the mortuary when I'm not using it. Here, I have a question for you.
I spent the early afternoon tending to the bushes by the mortuary.
If you tended to the bushes by the mortuary, how come your shovel has dirt on it? You trim the hedges most days, but you didn't today, did you? The dirt on your shovel indicates that you did, in truth, dig the grave. That's true. It's a normal part of my job. I shouldn't have lied about it, I know. I worried that if I told the truth, I thought you'd think I killed that boy, but I didn't. When you lie to me, you veil the truth from the eye of Ein Sof. Speak the truth now. There is no room for error in this investigation. Fine, I dug the grave for the funeral, just doing my job. But it was empty when I left it. Alright, his timeline here is much more definitive now, more specific. Let's hear it, Abraham.
Nerissa told me there'd be an urgent funeral in the evening. I'm not usually told who it's for. So I picked up the shovel and went down to the rear plot to dig a new grave. The ground was hard. Took me some time to dig that hole. I took a long break while digging. It's within my rights. There wasn't anyone else around, so it was nice and peaceful. Then I got back to it and finished digging the grave. When the grave was ready, I walked back to the mortuary to let Nerissa know.
Okay, so let's ask you some questions.
The ground was hot, so Nerissa told me there'd be an urgent...
So you didn't know that the grave was for Mother Miriam? No, I didn't ask who it was for. I never do. Doesn't change how deep the hole needs to be.
So I picked up the shovel and went down to...
You didn't run into anyone on your way to the grave? Nope, no one passed by me.
The ground was hard. Took me some time to...
So the grave was dug this afternoon? Yes. I was surprised by the short notice. Usually I'm told the day before.
I took a long break while digging.
You're certain that no one was around while you were taking your break? There wasn't anybody, it was just me.
Then I got back to it and finished digging the grave.
So the grave was dug this afternoon? Yes, I was surprised by so you already said that.
When the grave was ready, I walked back to...
You didn't run into anyone? Nope. I didn't want to accuse you, I'm sorry, sir. Wanted to ask about it. What procedure was she busy with? Did you see what she was doing in the main room of the mortuary? No, of course not. I can't see through walls. Understandable, dude. Alright, so... let's leave you. Let's go talk to... let's go talk to What's-Her-Face. This episode's gonna be rather long. Do we know the muddy footprints? Oh, I didn't ask him about the muddy footprints. I should have done so. It's just gonna make the episode longer. It's fine. These can't be my footprints. It's true that I went inside the mortuary after working outside, but that was before the rain. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. That helps. It would have been even more helpful if you could say that's not my shoe size, but... Okay, there's the mortuary worker. There's the body. There's some stuff over there that's not glowing. Maybe it did glow. Maybe I just missed it. Yeah, there it is. I thought there was some stuff over here. What's this? A bouquet. Evidence found. Nerissa's workstation. Graveyard schedule. Alright, let's check those out. A bundle of fresh blossoms like that found on a grave. Why were they on the floor? And the schedule was... The records show 2 notable entries for today, both explicitly authorized by Abbot Gregory. 1, funeral for Mother Miriam at sundown. 2, visit by Father Augustine. Unrestricted access granted. Unrestricted access. The bloody liver. Why is there a bloody liver just hanging out on a shelf? Found on a table with other entrails, still partially warm and moist. It appears mangled in some way. Perhaps smashed? That's weird. Embalmed body of Miriam. The Identified as Mother Miriam, there's a large incision down her stomach. Judging from the uneven coloring and chemical scent, she appears partially embalmed. Newly appointed voice of Einsoft, scheduled to receive an aether coronet implant at the workshop, murdered in the morning. Nerissa, let's have your...
Praise Ainsof. You must be the famed exorcist. It is an honor, sister.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
I'm Nerissa, and I serve Ainsof by preparing the dead for burial.
Okay, tell me your story, Nerissa.
I take pleasure in providing cleanliness and comfort for bodies after their souls have departed.
I see. Nerissa, how did you know the victim?
Not at all. The first time I saw him, he was curled in that grave, dirty and bloody. The whole afternoon, I prepared Mother Miriam's body for burial. There isn't much else to tell.
Okay, you claim you never saw the guy. Well, let me ask you about yourself. Responsible for preparing the bodies for burial and administrative tasks such as scheduling burials. I'm Nerissa, the embalmer at the mortuary. I pray that I'm known for cleanliness and thoroughness. Okay, well, let's hear your story.
Early this afternoon, I informed Abraham of the funeral scheduled for this evening. I'm grave to tell. Once Abraham left, I started preparing the body for burial. I was alone the entire time. No one came by.
That's a long period of time for you to just be hanging out.
Mid-afternoon, Abraham barged into the mortuary, bellowing that the grave is now ready. I sent him away to focus. After Abraham's disturbance, I completed the embalming to the best of my humble abilities.
And then you rushed to the grave.
Just after dark, I heard a scream from the back field. A dead body was found.
Okay, so that's all fine. So everyone, this is all accounted for. Mostly this is accounted for. This is accounted for. So there's a lot of Augustine's story that we can't verify.
Early this afternoon, I informed Abraham of the funeral scheduled for
I'm going to ask you some questions about these before we end the episode. And Abraham knew about the funeral? I certainly hope so. Why else would he dig a grave? Okay, but did he know who it was for is really what I'm asking.
Once Abraham left,
No one came by at all while you were preparing the body? Nobody, which was perfect because I need the silence to focus.
Mid-afternoon, Abraham barged into the mortuary.
Why did you send him away? Is Abraham's presence so distracting? Yes, I don't like people to stand around and gawk while I'm trying to work. No offense.
After Abraham's disturbance, I completed...
Do you consider your work complete, then? I did my best, given the circumstances. I always do my best, sister. You know what? I'm going to contradict you right now. I know I should be ending the episode, but I'm going to contradict you and say that the body is not complete. It is partially embalmed. The body on the embalming table has a clear incision that remains unsealed. How could you possibly claim that it is ready for burial? Sister Ada, I truly tried my best, but I could not finish the preparations in time. I mean, that's all you had to say. You were interrupted by somebody getting murdered. You wouldn't have had any complaints from me if you just came out and said that. Where you see, I misplaced my surgical tool. Okay, now I got questions. I searched all over the mortuary for it, but I could not find it anywhere. Alright, let's check your new timeline, and then I swear we're ending the
Once
episode.
mid-afternoon, Abraham barged into the mortuary, bellowing that the grave is now ready. I sent him away to focus.
And then in next episode, we will need to ask you the questions about everything.
Pardon. After Abraham left, I noticed that my multi-tool wasn't in my pocket. I searched all over the mortuary for it, but it was missing.
But you've only been in contact with 2 people.
I did what I could without
With one
making new
person.
incisions, but that made things slower and messier. I'm not pleased with the results.
Okay, actually, I'm going to I'm going to contradict you one more time before we end the episode, because Augustine said that they sent Isaac to the mortuary. You never said that you saw Isaac.
Once Abraham left, I started preparing the body for burial. I was alone the entire time.
You were
No
alone
one
the
came
entire
by.
time. Are you sure about that? Because Augustine says different. Lies, Nerissa. Father Augustine saw you speak to Isaac by the entrance of the mortuary. Isaac entered the mortuary, admit it. Very well, there's no use hiding it. Please know that nothing untoward happened. The victim only stopped by for a moment. Alright. Let's watch these, and then I swear we're... Okay, let's watch these, let's check her deal, and then let's end the episode.
Early this afternoon, I informed Abraham of the funeral scheduled for this evening. The truth is that the apprentice did come by. He asked for a bouquet for the funeral later that day. I'm brave to tell. When I showed him the bouquet, he held it for a moment and then threw it on the floor. I suppose it wasn't to his master's tastes. I forgot to pick it back up. Then the boy asked to be taken to the rear fields before the funeral, so I led him out the back exit.
Okay, and then we got to your story. All right, so let's check your forehead. What's your deal? Famine survivor. Carnivore. Are you eating the bodies? Hold on. Now I have to ask you these questions. A memory found in Nerissa's sanctum. She grew up during the Great Famine, feeding on anything she could find. She eventually found sustenance, but at what cost? Without faith, I could never have persevered through those days. I am ever grateful to Einsoft and the kind souls of our church. I keep wanting to put a T at the end. I always do. Einsoft. Found in Nerissa's sanctum, enjoys exotic cuts of meat, especially fresh entrails and organs. Perhaps I enjoy meat too much. But everyone has a soft spot for something, don't they? You're gross. I mean, I'm not saying that the kid caught you like chewing on a liver out of the corpse and then you killed him for it, but I'm also not saying that. But I guess that will have to do for this episode. So thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you again next time.